But I'll be talking you through a process of touching your partner so that you can get a sense of what moves where. But let's have a look here a little bit. So in this wonderful cactus position, thank you for that title. Yeah, that's great. In this cactus position, it really puts everything in a max position on this side. Can you see the arms turned around in a max position? This is rotated. Everything is like weird. I can't think of any other position in the real world that you could. Can you think of any action in the real world that you would do this? It's like weird. Bollywood dancing. Oh, there we go. Yeah. That's good. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So that's what kind of, it makes it really it's quite an abstract position. Yeah, it's not something that you encounter every day. You'll encounter that every day, and that one very rarely you'll encounter that one. So first of all, it's just because of the sheer abstractness of the position, its unfamiliarity, that starts to develop, makes us pay a lot of attention to what's going on. And then when you add on top of that the fact that you've turned your head, now that's an interesting just by itself. So you can see as soon as you turn your head, what happens with the arms. Yes. See how the rib cage moves more into that shoulder blade, and this guy's hooked up not as elegantly as you are, and yet that still happens. Yeah. So there you are lying on that side, and this is like a general question for you. How many of you, when you have your head turned to one side, does that rear arm kind of just go out of mind? Yeah. We'll come to this a little later this week, this relationship between how we experience things and how those experiences find their way into our expression, into our linguistic expression, into our language. You know, when people say out of sight, out of mind, this is a really good example. Yeah. How many of you found that you were still quite aware of the arm, but the clarity of what was going on back there was nothing like the clarity that was what was going on in front? Yeah. So there is this interesting attentional effect that goes on, that this seems to be our attentional field, and for some of us we need to learn how to take our attention behind ourselves more. So this configuration offers that, and then going on with that. So that business of remember the business of the balance beam? You could say that whole balance beam image was really about, can you get in a sense of the axis, the midline of your spine? Because that's what became the reference point for when you were moving this arm upwards. You weren't moving it like that, and you weren't moving it like that. That there was this constant relationship between that line and this line. And that's about where they converge. Can you see that? This is one of Feldenkrais's, I guess you could call one of his geometrical lessons. Yeah, it's very geometrical. So if you've got that line and you're traveling and you're traveling and you're traveling and you're traveling, you get to a certain point, and that's when those two lines converge. And that's about when you start to take your arm underneath. How many of you found that if you just timed it, that's when it happens? No. No, I was doing that. Absolutely, Helen. That's right. No, you were doing this. You were going. And that is very abstract. Yeah. So actually, for you to be aware that your forearm is staying parallel, 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 that's really abstract. Yeah, possibly so, yes, that when you're doing... So that, in itself, that is quite an attentional and perceptual achievement, just in itself. And as I was going around the room, what was starting to happen is more and more and more of you were staying with exactly that geometry. So even as something as abstract as geometric lines, you're able to pay attention, pick up, and organize your motion around that. That's cool, yeah. And then I started to ask you questions about pelvis. Remember? Which way would you roll your pelvis for this to be able to go higher up here? Oh, I think I've jumped a step. Oh yeah, all the lifting stuff. Yeah? Yeah? Do you lift that first? Do you lift this first? Do you lift that first? These are all the movable parts. And the intent of that section is if you can feel the difference between that and that and that, then you're in a better place to know whether it's all together or separate. Nice strategy, yeah, rather than just keeping you guessing. Well, let's do the variations. This, 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 yeah. And then something about, somewhere in that lesson I said, is there a simpler way? Remember, is there a simpler way? Maybe if you just thought of both shoulders converging, that starts to be a simpler way of lifting. All right, and then we got to the pelvis. And there was something about the pelvis rolling left and something about the pelvis rolling right, and you can see the immediate effect. Yeah. This way, that way, that way, that way. Yeah. And then that leg coming all the way. He's not going to do it. Yeah. Thank you, Helen. That's great. Yeah. Notice how much space that gives you on this side, but notice how tough that is on that opposite shoulder. Even this guy's shoulder slides down. Yeah. Yes, well, you can see that as I do that, where the, yeah, see, right there. Now, you have encountered some of these kinds of movements before in pelvic clock. Yeah. You have encountered some of these movements before in hooking the toe. You've been ooh, that's nice. Ribs, that's good. Yeah. So you have encountered all these trunk movements. Now they're being represented in a slightly different fashion to you. And Helen, you'd know this one. So there's this moment here that you go here, you go here, you go here. This leg comes up, 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 up. And then you get to about here. And if you try to, some of you are doing, yeah, if you try to get the hand here, something gets in the way. It's the head. Just in case you didn't know. So then there has to be a lifting of the head. And in this position, when you lift the head, yeah, notice the pelvis goes from a rolled position to an unrolled position. That's when it would make sense to actually straighten that leg. It's actually in the way now. And that would be great timing to actually bring the arm underneath and catch the head with it and turn the head the other way. Yeah, and that's what I saw you doing. Yeah, that was cool. Yeah. So it's a really, really detailed lesson. And that's why it'd be nice for you to put your hands on and feel some of these things in your hand before we go on to the next section. Yeah. Okay. before we head off, any questions that you have about that? No. Okay. Go with go pair off. You've already paired off. Go with your partner. One of you lie on your tummy in the cactus position. If you've had enough of having your head to the right, have your head to the left, but switch over the arms. I don't mind.